This is Dr. J, and you are watching Module 5 for the course Cross Cultural Communication. This is going to be a pretty bare bones lecture for today. You're going to be responsible for watching the documentary Isle of Flowers or Ilha das Flores. It's a classic Brazilian documentary. If you went to school between 2000 and 2010, or actually 1990 and 2010, there's a good chance that one of your teachers, a social studies teacher, a science teacher, would have shown you this documentary. I was learning Portuguese in the 2010s, and my Portuguese professors showed me this documentary a lot. And pretty much when you watch the documentary, you're going to see this moving object. You're sort of seeing the circle, the connection of a tomato and how it turns into waste and how humans consume the tomato, which then they dispose of and it turns into food for pigs, which then goes to a garbage dump and then it goes back and people eat refuse that is not even good enough for the pigs. So it's really a moving object, something that shows the interconnectedness of our natural environment. It's satirical. It's from the 80s. It's aged pretty well. There might be some cultural and racial terminology, particularly people from the United States might not be comfortable with it just a little bit, but in Brazil, people find it funny. I just watched it with a Brazilian the other day. I've seen it about 20 times. And the interesting thing about it, particularly for our course and for this lesson today, is that the director, Furtado, made about 5 different versions of this. He did a Spanish, English, French, Portuguese, and German language version of this where he narrated every single one. And it's a cross cultural examination of how to communicate environmental issues. So really interesting. I think there's some comments we can see in this article. Doesn't talk about Ilha das Flores at all, but what we can see is some of these educational aspects when it comes to teaching sustainability in an intercultural learning environment. So what I just am going to do is highlight some of the key concepts, particularly where the authors have been talking about intercultural communication and focused on intercultural communication. And I think these are just really interesting notes that we can use when we're planning or thinking about environmental or scientific education and cross-cultural communication. So the title of the article, Transformative Interdisciplinary and Intercultural Learning for Developing HEI, Higher Education Institution Students, Sustainability-Oriented Competences, case study. So sort of a mouthful there, but more or less what we're seeing is a model for university students to learn about sustainability and outlining specific competences or qualities or skills that teachers often try to teach. So I'm just going to read the abstract here. I'm not going to read the whole article word for word. I've highlighted the most important parts here as well. The literature has produced relevant theoretical insights into pedagogical frameworks, tools, and competences that would be best suited to teach sustainability at higher education institutions. This article contributes to such a discussion using a course on sustainability developed by us, the authors, as a case study. 2 research questions are tackled in this article. How to empower students to address urban sustainability challenges through the inclusion of transformative, interdisciplinary, and intercultural learning into the current higher education system. 2, which pedagogical tools can be used to develop students' sustainability-oriented competences? And remember, pedagogy is the philosophy of learning. To address the research questions, the case study consists of 2 parts. First, by reflecting on the course design, This article aims to shed light on the benefits and challenges of transformative pedagogy and an interdisciplinary and intercultural framework. Second, by analyzing students' learning diaries, and so about 36 students that were keeping diaries, using thematic analysis. This article offers insights into some of the students' learning processes, allowing us to assess the strengths and weaknesses of the course design, as well as draw implications to improve and renew courses on sustainability in higher education. The findings from this learning diaries indicate that students thirst for formal knowledge on sustainability, which they connected to their professional development and yearning for action. The learning diaries also suggest students increasing awareness of sustainability as a systematic and structural issue during the course, which aligns with the transformative learning framework used. Finally, this study emphasizes the need for structural support to meaningfully integrate sustainability in higher education curricula and teaching practices. So, if you're interested in teaching, this is really interesting. If you're interested in, as a student, learning and the philosophy of learning and teaching, it's also pretty interesting. Just reviewing these two central questions: how to empower students and to address urban sustainability challenges through inclusion and transformative interdisciplinary and intercultural learning into the current higher education curriculum. So, how do we use these themes to develop lesson planning and overall course goals? And then, two, which teaching tools can be used to encourage a specific set of sustainably oriented skills? And then finding from the learning diaries, so these are the conclusions, see that students really want to learn. Okay, that sounds great here. Let's see if we can go here. I got a framework. Well, urban sustainability has developed into a contested societal discourse which calls for higher education to produce creativity, critical thinking, and sustainability-oriented competencies. Current higher education system does not provide many opportunities to achieve these goals. All right, so that's an argument. That's a problem that they started off with. I think it's important that we talk about sustainability and environmental education, but we really don't have the framework to achieve that goal, to resolve that problem. This article contributes to such a discussion using a course on sustainability that we developed, that was mentioned in the abstract. The advantage and challenges of interdisciplinary courses resemble those of intercultural education. So, interdisciplinary more or less just means more than one field. So, let's just say anthropology. I'm an anthropologist, and environmental studies. Those are two different fields of study. They overlap in many different ways. But what happens when we focus on the ways that they overlap? That's sort of what interdisciplinary means. And this interdisciplinary overlap is similar to when we have two cultures that overlap. The development of intercultural competencies is permeated with complex processes as individuals engage with perceived cultural differences. So we see that there are complex relationships based in differences between culture. Embedding our course on sustainability in an interdisciplinary and intercultural framework was an opportunity to enhance its transformative orientation. This is something that pedagogists always talk about. When you teach someone, you want to transform them. So what do we do? How can we use intercultural frameworks to transform people? It allows us to explore obstacles and incentives for action and to engage with sustainability issues from a holistic, multifaceted perspective. All right, so we have this interdisciplinary, intercultural perspective, looking at all these different opinions, and it's holistic. It's all-consuming and all-considering in many different ways. A somewhat unique aspect of the course discussed in this article was our different academic backgrounds: intercultural communication, environmental sciences, and business and society management. So we see three people co-teaching a course. We're going to, of course, see that as the course goes on. Everyone in this course probably has a different academic history, and it's a shared environment. So we often have to, as teachers, adapt courses to these unique learning histories, right? By reflecting on the course design in part one of the article, this article aims to shed light on the benefits and challenges of transformative pedagogy and of an interdisciplinary and intercultural framework. In addition, findings from the students' learning diaries offer insights into some of the students' learning processes. We can see here a methodology pretty much just looking and trying to understand student reactions by using their diaries or their journals as a source of data. We have here the structure of the course going through. It looks like there's eight processes here. So we can go and sort of cycle through a lot of this stuff. We see some results, reflections on course design. We see some key pillars, overarching orientation. I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit here to page 6. So pillar 3, so this is just a central goal or central bedrock for the course, looking at intercultural education and interdisciplinary education as a core principle for the course. In addition to the transformative and constructive bases on which the course design drew, the course also incorporated 2 main dimensions that we perceived to be intrinsically connected to sustainability: interdisciplinarity and interculturality. So we have these holistic perspectives that are really important for sustainability. You go into an environment, you go into any social context, you're going to have all these different perspectives, you're going to have all these different opinions, and you really need to see them and communicate these opinions holistically. Intercultural education is recognized as a strategic resource towards sustainability and social cohesion. The importance of intercultural education has been reinforced by processes of globalization and increased emphasis placed on diversity. So I don't think I have to outline this for anyone in the classroom, quote unquote, virtual classroom now, but diversity, inclusion are key terms in social science classrooms, especially when we are trying to create global learners, people that can go beyond their communities, go beyond the boundaries of the United States, and go and communicate and influence and share and collaborate. Intercultural education not only deals with the interplay between the global and the local, sometimes people say, but also the importance of constantly navigating between both rather than choosing one or the other. So locally global, globally local. I've read books with both of those titles, particularly in the early 2000s. There was a lot of interest in how we can academically bridge the local and the global. What do my local opinions have to do with a global perspective? What does my global perspective of the world have to say about how I live my local life and about my local community? In addition, as it entails the analysis of socially constructed reality, our world is more or less subjective and it's not concrete in this perspective, so it's socially constructed. Our society builds truth. The power relations, ideologies, and struggles embedded in discourses and practices about sustainability can all be addressed in intercultural education. So if it's socially constructed, each culture constructs the world in a different way. If we look and try to understand the way that social hierarchies are created, the way that ideologies and traditions and types of knowledge are made, and then how people are using those in an embedded daily world, we can then look and see how sustainability relates to intercultural education. As interculturality embraces the complexity of social relationships and realities, it is very well suited to address the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity of the world. No one is ever going to have a complete vision of the world. You might get a really arrogant person that is really certain about everything, but if we look at these holistic, complex relationships, how they are constantly changing, they're volatile, how they're really leaving sort of unanswered questions everywhere we go. The more you know, the less you know. And then also the complexity and ambiguity. Some things are just not clear, right? So once we sort of address all this, we can see that intercultural education helps fill in gaps and helps gives us this sort of framework. Intercultural education serves as a mirror for students to reflect on their own sustainability practices and assumptions, the local, and the political, historical, economic structures in which they are embedded, the global. The interculturality position of our course is reflected in several aspects. First, when selecting students for the honor course, we took interculturality into account, which ensured a diverse group of students in terms of gender, nationality, and academic background. That's also something related to interdisciplinarity and also interculturality. Second, we decided or dedicated one seminar to address the intercultural perspectives on sustainability. So it's a pillar and it is important. If we go down just a little bit more to say here, looking at the findings from the diary, this is part 3. So what are some conclusions? And this was taking place during COVID. We see that there is a sort of fragile group dynamic during this time. I'm sure you're all aware. You all were probably doing some type of learning or working at the time. There was some uncertainty. The group dynamic was a little fragile. But what do we see? The feelings of empowerment associated with peer collaboration was connected by the students to specific characteristics of the group, namely the intercultural and interdisciplinary dimensions seem to play an important role in motivating students to engage with one another. So when we are looking at virtual collaborations, when we are looking at on the ground collaborations, it's really important to have this multicultural perspective, especially when we're collaborating. It's going to make people feel empowered, right? This highlights an important structural limitation of higher education, which tends to advocate for the interdisciplinary and intercultural education, but often fails to implement such practices. So, see a lot of lip service, but we don't see a lot of actual practice. The emphasis placed by students on the interdisciplinary and intercultural dimensions of the course calls for more integrating teaching practices and interdisciplinary collaboration. So we see that there's just some really obvious advantages to focusing on intercultural and interdisciplinary discussions in any classroom. It makes students feel empowered. It has them engaged in the work a lot better. In particular, so this is sort of close to the conclusion, the transformative learning orientation focused on competencies for action, discussion on environmental citizenship versus nudging and policies to reduce ecological footprints. Moreover, the interdisciplinary and intercultural framework shed light on the way ideologies and discourses are constructed through and constructive of local and global policies. So see here that students were able to note down and reflect on their role, their sense of citizenship, and also their own impacts. So what are their obligations, and then also what are the effects that they have on the environment. And then also we can see that they are able to unpack these very global processes when we have such a intercultural framework. And then finally, looking at the conclusion, one of the most important conclusions that the authors bring up, the second most important, is that the focus on our course on interdisciplinarity and interculturality stimulated students to question the ideological dimensions of discourses about sustainability and to engage with the VOCA of the world. The interdisciplinary and intercultural framework brought insights into how ideologies and discourses are produced or reproduced, thus contributing to a holistic understanding of the complex interplay between the local and the global. The interdisciplinary and intercultural framework was therefore embedded in various aspects of the course, content participates, pedagogical tools, which may have enhanced their success. See that embedding this is important, being explicit is important. The students focuses on the student narratives, and in the future, including teachers' experiences, would be valuable to gain a holistic understanding of challenges and benefits of implementing transformative interdisciplinary and intercultural pedagogical tools for sustainability education. And then the findings are indeed of particular relevance to higher education teachers interested in developing sustainability courses embedded in transformative interdisciplinary and intercultural pedagogy. All right, so we can see here just what maybe a teacher desires to do, and then this course actually very intentionally puts those desires of intercultural communication into practice, highlighting global and local types of citizenship, and then also allowing students to reflect on the ecological complexity of the world that they live in and that they influence. As you're watching Isle of Flowers, as you are unpacking that movie, maybe we can see some ideas from this article. As in the movie, there was a very explicit goal implicit goal, I would say implicit goal, of trying to make people feel something in the environmental context, relating the environment of the Isle of Flowers to gut reactions. There's some sort of nauseating moments in the film that you'll see. There's some comical riffs on a guitar that really draw your attention to specific aspects of the film. And then also you can see that there is a very particularly with like the multi-language thing of it, you'll see that it can feel very familiar, even though it's in like the south of Brazil. It's in a place I haven't even been. I've been to Brazil a bunch and I haven't even gone there, but it makes this very local place feel global, and it makes me as a global citizen feel like I can understand that local setting. So intercultural communication, spanning these bridges, spanning these narratives.